Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Tanvi Taneja, coming up in the next hour. Trump administration hits dozens of countries' goods with steep tariffs, a 35% tariff on Canadian goods. Brazil hit with 50% tariff, 25% for India, 20% for Taiwan and 39% for Switzerland. Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney says disappointed with Trump's tariff hike decision, vows to protect Canadian jobs and diversify export markets. India to take all steps to protect national interest, asserts Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal. Industry experts feel the impact of tariffs will be minimal and short-lived. U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff meets Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in a bid to salvage truce talks, also to visit Gaza amid the hunger crisis. And in cricket, Karun Nair and Washington Sundar will look to stretch India's first innings total on day 2 of the 5th and the final test against England at the Oval. U.S. President Donald Trump signed an executive order on Thursday imposing new tariffs on exports from dozens of trading partners, including Canada, Brazil, India, Taiwan, ahead of a Friday trade deadline. Now, this includes a 35% duty on many goods from Canada, 50% for Brazil, 25% for India, 20% for Taiwan and 39% for Switzerland. Meanwhile, China is facing an August 12th deadline to reach a durable tariff agreement with the Trump administration. Now, this order listed higher import duty rates of 10% to 41% starting in 7 days for 69 trading partners as the deadline approached. Goods from all other countries not listed would be subject to a 10% U.S. import tax. Trump had previously said that the rate might be higher. Now, in a minor reprieve, though, the White House said that the measures will take effect in a week. The policy includes certain exemptions. Goods that are loaded onto ships by August 7th and reach the U.S. by October 5th will not be subject to the new rates, provided they were already in transit. Now, Donald Trump also signed an executive order increasing tariffs on Canadian goods to 35% from 25% on all products not covered by the U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade agreement. The new levies come into effect from August 1st. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney expressed disappointment as U.S. raised tariffs on Canadian goods from 25 to 35%. Carney said the U.S. has cited the cross-border flow of fentanyl to justify its steep tariffs, even though Canada accounts for just 1% of the U.S. fentanyl imports and has been working intensively to further reduce those volumes. The Canadian Prime Minister vowed action to protect Canadian jobs, buy Canadian goods, invest in industrial competitiveness and diversify export markets.
Prospects for a two-state solution have been steadily and gravely eroded, including by the pervasive threat of Hamas terrorism to Israel and its people, culminating in the heinous attack of October 7, 2023, and the terrorist organization Hamas's long-standing violent rejection of Israel's right to exist and its rejection of a two-state solution. A belief in a two-state.
Now, Donald Trump said that Canada must pay a fair rate after raising tariffs on certain Canadian goods from 25 to 35%.
Well, they have to pay a fair rate. That's all. It's very simple. They have been charging very, very high tariffs to our farmers. Some over 200%. And they've been treating our farmers very badly. They've been treating our country very badly for years.
Meanwhile, Donald Trump gave Mexico a 90-day reprieve from higher tariffs to negotiate a broader trade deal. The extension, which avoids a 30% tariff on most Mexican non-automotive and non-metal goods compliant with the U.S.-Mexico-Canada Agreement on Trade, came after a Thursday morning call between Trump and Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum. He confirmed that the current tariffs, including a 25% duty on fentanyl-related goods and cars, and a 50% levy on steel, aluminium and copper, will remain unchanged throughout the extension period. He further noted that Mexico had agreed to immediately eliminate its non-tariff trade barriers, which had previously hindered cross-border commerce. Thailand and Cambodia have expressed hopes over the new tariffs effective from August the 1st. Thailand's finance minister said that the 19% tariff rate agreed with the United States will help bolster its competitiveness globally, boost investor confidence, and create opportunities for economic growth. On the other hand, Cambodia's Deputy Prime Minister said that the tariff rate of 19% on Cambodia's exports will allow it to expand more factories and remain competitive with its peers.
As I have mentioned before, with or without Trump's tariff, it's most important for Thailand to work on increasing our competitiveness capabilities by making our production costs cheaper. This rate allows us to maintain the remaining factories in Cambodia, and we have the chance to expand more factories, attract more investors to come to invest here for the interest of our nation, that is, the creation of jobs for our people. We will continue to negotiate to lower the tariffs below 19% on some goods that are the priority goods from Cambodia.
Taiwan President Lai Ching-te said that the new 20% tariff rate set by the Trump administration on goods imported from the island is provisional, and the government expects to negotiate a lower figure soon.
So far, the negotiations have achieved some interim progress. The tax rate has been reduced from 32% to 20%. However, the 20% tariff rate was never Taiwan's target to begin with. We will continue negotiations and strive for a rate that's more favorable for Taiwan. The US government has also expressed its willingness to engage in further discussions with Taiwan on this matter.
Malaysia's Trade Ministry said in a statement that the revised tariff rate imposed by the United States on Malaysia was achieved without compromising the nation's sovereign rights after it stood firm on various red line issues. The positive outcome of the US tariff talks follows sustained engagement between both the governments and is a significant achievement of Malaysia's thorough and methodological negotiating process. According to the statement from Malaysia's Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry, the United States imposed a 19% tariff rate on Malaysia. Moving on now, the monsoon session of Parliament is underway in the national capital in India. As the opposition protest continues in both the houses of Parliament, the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha had to be repeatedly adjourned as the opposition continues their protest on the floor of the House, disrupting the proceedings, while the Rajya Sabha on Friday noon was adjourned to meet again on Monday, 11 a.m. Indian Standard Time. The upper house of the Parliament, however, was scheduled to take up the carriage of goods by Sea Bill 2025. The lower house of Parliament will take up the Indian Ports Bill 2025 for consideration and passage. And Dibendu Mondal, DD India's correspondent, is tracking the Parliament updates for us. Dibendu, what more can you tell us about the opposition's protest and their demand for a special discussion on the voter list revision in Bihar?
Well, Tanvi, to begin with, as we speak, the Lok Sabha had reconvened to meet at 2 p.m. this afternoon. But however, due to continuous protest in the Lok Sabha as well, which is the lower house of the Indian Parliament, the parliament has now been adjourned once again. Now with the Rajya Sabha being adjourned earlier for till Monday, the Lok Sabha also now being adjourned following the continuous protest by the opposition in the well of the House. Now, Tanvi, this SIR issue has become like a deadlock in the parliamentary procedures and in the parliament proceedings over the last 2 weeks, because we have seen continuous demand from the opposition parties to hold a discussion on the SIR. But what the speaker says is this, that it is a sub judice matter. This matter is currently in the Supreme Court. The Election Commission is also a constitutional authority. So therefore, a matter which is sub judice cannot be debated on the floor of the House. So therefore, this deadlock seems to continue, with the opposition holding the House to ransom. In fact, both the houses to ransom, because they are not budging down despite repeated requests, both from the Speaker, the Deputy Chairman, as well as from the government. So therefore, we have, in fact, the Speaker had also been saying that precious time of the House, in fact, of both the houses, of the Rajya Sabha as well as the Lok Sabha, is being wasted because of this continuous disruption from the opposition parties. But it is unlikely that the opposition parties is going to budge down. And what strategy government takes in terms of making the House function normally over the next two more weeks, which is left for the Parliament to function. In fact, this monsoon session of Parliament to function will be interesting to see. From Monday, we are expected to see a new strategy of the government coming in place in order to hold important legislative businesses of the government. Remember, Tanvi, there are several important bills that the government is expected to bring in, which includes the Jan Vishwas bill and also the income tax amendment bill, which was with the JPC, has now been tabled. This bill is expected to be taken up for discussion in the lower house. So, these key bills which impact the common man is being held to ransom by the opposition parties. But it will be interesting to see over the next 2 weeks how the government and the opposition comes to a consensus on helping the parliament function smoothly. Tanvi.
Okay, Dibyendu, lastly, what is the view of the parliamentarians about US President Donald Trump's imposition of 25% tariffs on India? Was the opposition satisfied with Piyush Goyal, India's Commerce Minister's reply yesterday?
Well, Tanvi, we have been speaking to multiple, parliamentarians, both from the ruling as well as the opposition parties, and many opposition MPs have come on record to say that, the imposition of such high tariff on India, which is a growing economy, is unfair. And Trump has been changing his position every couple of days. So therefore, there seems to be a sense of a consensus from between. Of course, the government will criticize at the government. In fact, Piyush Goyal's response has been very measured yesterday, saying that whatever decision that the government will take in national interest, and all the departments as well as other bodies associated with trade and industry in India is evaluating the implication of that tariff order by US President Donald Trump. But what is interesting, Tanvi, apart from a couple of others, there have been a similar consensus that has been coming in from the opposition parties, which says that this is an unfair, a one-sided, when India was already on a negotiating table on this. So it was a one-sided tariff that was slapped on India, and it will be interesting to see the response that the government of India comes with. But, having said this, yesterday Piyush Goyal did clarify on the floor of the House that whatever decision that the government takes will be in national interest and will protect the interest of, all the workers, farmers, MSME industries, and the pharma industries.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dibyendu. Dibyendu Mondal tracking the India's monsoon session of Parliament. You're watching DD India News Hour, still to come on the show. London's Heathrow Airport unveils a massive £49 billion master plan for expansion. Rwanda and Congo hold first meeting of the Joint Oversight Committee in Washington to implement a peace deal. And UNICEF reveals harsh realities of Bangladesh. Over 39 million people live in multidimensional poverty, with every 3 in 10 children affected.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I am Tanvi Taneja. As India prepares to celebrate its 79th Independence Day, Prime Minister Narendra Modi extended an invitation to all citizens to contribute their thoughts and ideas for his address from the ramparts of the Red Fort on August the 15th. Posting on social media platform X, the Prime Minister wrote, and I quote him, "As we approach this year's Independence Day, I look forward to hearing from my fellow Indians. What themes or ideas would you like to see reflected in this year's Independence Day speech? Share your thoughts on the open forums on MyGov and the Namo app." Unquote. The month of July 2025 saw India actively engaged in various diplomatic fronts, reflecting its growing influence on the global stage while grappling with complex international relations. Take a look at our next report.
Prime Minister Modi's visit to the Maldives marked a high point in bilateral relations, fostering cooperation in areas like debt repayment, fisheries, health, tourism, and digital payments. PM Modi participated in the 60th Independence Day celebrations of the Maldives as the guest of honor. It was termed as a historic moment, reflecting the deepening friendship between the two nations. Another major achievement of Indian diplomacy was the signing of FTA with UK. This FTA marks a significant milestone in India's engagement with major developed economies and reflects a shared commitment to strengthening economic integration. As the world's fourth and sixth largest economies, respectively, India and the UK's bilateral engagement holds global economic significance. Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited Ghana, Trinidad and Tobago, Argentina, Brazil, and Namibia. He interacted with the heads of state of these nations to discuss further strengthening of ties with India during his visit. He also attended the BRICS summit in Rio de Janeiro. These visits were aimed at reinforcing India's bonds across the global south, strengthening partnerships on both sides of the Atlantic, and deepening engagements in the multilateral platforms such as BRICS, the African Union, ECOWAS, and the CARICOM. At the SU meet in Beijing, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar met Chinese Vice President Han Zheng and stressed open dialogue and voicing hope that recent gains in India-China ties will continue. India was successful in getting the UNSC monitoring team to accept the Resistance Front (TRF) as a terrorist entity and in securing the US's declaration of TRF as a global terrorist organization. Indian Army received the first batch of 3 Apache attack helicopters from the US. The induction of the Apache helicopters enhances the Army's capabilities in precision strikes, close air support, and anti-armor warfare. India continues to pursue a multi-aligned foreign policy, strengthening ties with various nations while adapting to the changing global power dynamics. Overall, July 2025 showcased India's proactive and assertive foreign policy, characterized by both strategic partnerships and a readiness to stand firm on its national interest amidst a dynamic and challenging global environment. Bureau Report, DD India.
And staying within the Asian continent, UNICEF has said that Bangladesh's first national multidimensional poverty index uncovers harsh realities for children and the people living in the country. According to the National Multidimensional Poverty Index released on Thursday, children are disproportionately impacted by deep-rooted challenges of poverty in Bangladesh, with almost 3 out of the 10 children living in multidimensional poverty. The report underscores the urgent need to address child-specific deprivations in health, education, and living standards that continue to undermine children's rights and potential. Overall, the report said that more than 39 million people in Bangladesh live in multidimensional poverty. Factors such as high inflation, lack of coordination across sectors, and the recent civil unrest are hindering progress by limiting critical investments needed to address child poverty in all its dimensions. On to West Asia now. As the global concern over the humanitarian crisis in Gaza intensifies, U.S. Special Envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, and U.S. Ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, are set to visit an aid distribution center in Gaza today. This will be Witkoff's second visit to Gaza this year. Earlier, the U.S. Special Envoy met Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Thursday. Witkoff has been the top U.S. representative in indirect negotiations between Israel and Hamas for a ceasefire and hostage release deal. But talks in Doha broke down last week, and Israel and the U.S. recalled their delegations. Earlier, Witkoff visited Gaza in January. Israel is under mounting international pressure to agree to a ceasefire and allow the world to flood Gaza with food, with Canada and Portugal, the latest Western governments, to announce plans to recognize a Palestinian state. In a related development, U.S. President Donald Trump on Thursday described the situation in Gaza as terrible. He said the U.S. recently contributed $60 million for food aid, but Hamas diverted that money and food resources.
Oh, it's terrible what's occurring there, yeah. It's a terrible thing. People are very hungry. You know, the United States gave $60 million for food, and it's a shame because nobody, you know, I don't see the results of it, and we gave it to people that in theory are watching over it fairly closely. We wanted Israel to watch over it. Part of the problem is Hamas is taking the money and they're taking the food. But we gave $60 million a couple of weeks ago. Nobody said anything about it.
On to Europe now. London's Heathrow Airport has unveiled a massive £49 billion expansion plan, including a third runway and new terminals in one of Europe's most ambitious airport projects in decades. The privately funded plan includes a £21 billion third runway and billions more for modernization and a new terminal. Heathrow says that the expansion could nearly double passenger capacity to 150 million per year and add 30 new routes. Despite opposition from environmental groups and local residents, the UK's Labour government backs the plan as part of its strategy to boost economic growth. A rival bid from the Aurora Group proposing a cheaper alternative has also been submitted. And on to Africa now. Taking a step toward implementing a peace deal agreed last month in the US, the first meeting of the Joint Oversight Committee for the Peace Agreement between the Democratic Republic of Congo and the Republic of Rwanda was held on Thursday in Washington, D.C. With 7 million people displaced in Congo, the UN calls it one of the most complex, serious humanitarian crises in the world.
A peace agreement brokered by the White House to stem the bloodshed in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, or DRC, was signed in Washington, D.C. on June 27th by officials of the two African nations. African Union, Qatar, and the United States attended the meeting of the committee in Washington. The Central African nation of Congo has been racked by conflict with more than 100 armed groups, the most potent backed by Rwanda, that have killed millions since the 1990s. The conflict traces its roots to the end of Rwandan genocide in 1994, when Hutu extremists fled to the DRC and continued their attacks on Rwanda's Tutsis. The Rwandan response led to the First and Second Congo Wars, during which the DRC accused Rwanda of targeting Hutu civilians and looting Congo's resources. The Rwanda-backed M23 rebel group is the most prominent armed group in the conflict, and its major advance early this year left bodies on the streets. The US played a key role in ending the conflict, but its commitment might depend on how much access it has to the minerals being discussed under separate negotiations between the American and Congolese governments. The mostly untapped minerals are estimated to be worth as much as $24 trillion by the US Department of Commerce. DRC will attract billions of dollars of Western investment to a region rich in tantalum, gold, cobalt, copper, lithium, and other minerals. With 7 million people displaced in Congo, the United Nations has called it one of the most protracted, complex, serious humanitarian crises on earth. Bureau Report, DD India.
And next we take a look at other stories making news around the world. Croatia marked the 30th anniversary of the military police Operation Storm with a ceremonial military parade along Vukovar Street in Zagreb. During the 1995 Operation Storm, Croatian forces regained almost all the territory that had been held by the rebel Croatian Serbs, aided by the Yugoslav army seized in 1991. Deforestation in Sierra Leone is significantly impacting the population of chimpanzees. In late May, Takugama announced the closure of its doors to the public in protest of the rapid loss of forest cover. The sanctuary is home to over 100 rescued chimpanzees. Sierra Leone lost approximately 2.17 million hectares of tree cover between 2001 and 2024. A sandstorm has engulfed Peru's Ica region and turned the skies into orange. The storm created a dramatic desert landscape, impacting visibility and potentially disrupting travel and outdoor activities. The country's meteorological department issued a warning of winds with speeds up to 40 kilometers per hour. You're watching DD India News Hour, still to come on the show. India's Rajnath Singh lauds the military forces for its readiness and preparedness for facing any conflict or war scenarios. A mega mock drill organized at 55 locations across New Delhi to train citizens to act in emergencies. And in a sign of India's shifting monsoon pattern, Rajasthan experiences its wettest July in nearly 7 decades.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium, we'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I am Tanvi Taneja. Here are the headlines we are tracking at this hour. Trump administration hits dozens of countries' goods with steep tariffs a 35% tariff on Canadian goods. Brazil hit with 50% tariff, 25% for India, 20% for Taiwan, and 39% for Switzerland. Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney says disappointed with Trump's tariff hike decision, vows to protect Canadian jobs and diversify export markets. India to take all steps to protect national interest, asserts Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal. Industry experts feel the impact of tariffs will be minimal and short-lived. India's Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal said that the centre is studying the implications of Donald Trump's announcement of 25% tariffs for India and will take all necessary steps to safeguard India's national interest. The US wants India to reduce its tariffs and provide market access across the board, and India has held firm about safeguarding the welfare of farmers, labourers, entrepreneurs, industrialists, micro, small and medium enterprises and stakeholders of the industrial sector. President Donald Trump's aggressive trade policies are shaking up the global economy. While he says these tariffs protect American jobs and manufacturing, businesses are already raising prices, leaving consumers to feel the impact at the checkout. Markets were volatile about the tariffs after they were announced, but have since steadied. These ups and downs are impacting pensions, jobs, interest rates for many. The US dollar has also dropped sharply amid uncertainty, and both the IMF and OECD have lowered their growth forecasts for 2025. Meanwhile, inflation in the US has risen to 2.7%, with prices climbing for everyday items like clothing, coffee, toys and appliances. Big companies such as Adidas, Nike and Mattel have announced price hikes. Tariffs and border delays are also pushing supply chain costs higher. Whereas, on the other hand, Indian industry experts believe that the US imposing a 25% reciprocal tariff on India will likely have a minimal impact, and the Indian economy is resilient enough to handle it. Listen in.
India only represents about 2.5% of America's total international trade. Certainly, I think the pharma that comes in from India is probably the most important element that comes into our country. Those items will be taxed a little bit higher, but I don't think it's going to have the kind of impact that, say, similar tariffs on Chinese goods or European goods would have. In the case of India, I don't think that impact is similarly going to be felt. So, I get the sense that these tariffs, if they happen, will not really have a very disruptive impact at home.
Because we have a large domestic market and domestic demand in India is stronger, I think that the impact will not be very much and will not be for a longer time.
And we are now joined by Shubhamoy Bhattacharjee, senior economic journalist, to help us understand US President Donald Trump's tariff imposition for India. Welcome, Dr. Shubhamoy. Is the current scenario possibly an opportunity for India to work at increasing the number of its free trade agreements?
Then we certainly, the big thing, as your current comments and the experts who spoke before me make it very clear. First of all, the number of items that we import from USA is not substantial. Our primary import from USA is oil. And oil import is subject to its own price fluctuations across the world. There are competing countries which, push in crude oil. So that takes away a large part of our trade, about $138 billion that we trade with USA. About 35 to 40 billion is essentially oil. So let's take that out. What remains? The rest of the items, very few items, when you go to buy your shop, the grocery, when I go to buy my stuff across India, when people go to buy their stuff, how many US products do they buy? Not even in terms of the intermediate machineries and stuff. There are things coming in. And as it was rightly therefore said, as you would find in many of the fund houses analysis that's coming along, that the impact, even if there's a full year, and I'm saying full year, not 1 day, 2 day, or 1 month, but a full year impact of these tariffs will shave off not more than 30 basis points from our GDP, which means if we are growing at say 6.5%, it will be 6.2% if it's the worst case scenario. So essentially, it is not a doomsday position. The problem is elsewhere. The problem is that the sudden fluctuations that the USA, as the world's largest economy, is imposing on the rest of the world. And that is bad for USA. It will actually could turn out to be good for India. I'll stop.
Okay, Shubhamoy, does it look like many, if not most countries, are giving President Trump exactly what he is looking for in terms of the level of their tariffs?
Let's forget the other countries. You know, we are not competing with other countries. We are not a trade-dependent economy. India's resilience, and we have talked about this in many shows on Doordarshan, is about its domestic economy. Largest part of our consumption and production happens within the borders of India. We might want to shift that and to become part of the global value chain, which is a very good idea, but that is a work in progress. The point to note, therefore, is how much hurt does this change impact on India? It does, but as I said, it is not substantial. You know, countries like, say, let me give an example, Vietnam. Vietnam is entirely dependent on trade with USA. That is its largest trading partner. The economy is just one trick economy. And therefore, it has had to take in a punishing, heavy amount of tariff duty on its own imports and agree to zero exports, zero tariff zero tariff from anything coming into USA, and yet accept that there will be about a 15 to 20% tariff on its exports to USA. We are not in that situation. We don't need to, which is why it gives us a chance to work on our trade strategy with a clear thought out plan. And that is what we are working on. So therefore, there's room for concern, but there's not a room for being very surprised or very agitated about what's happening.
Okay, how are the tariffs that President Trump has imposed on various countries likely to affect A, the US economy and consumer, and B, global trade and the global economy?
Then for what we are concerned about is what happens to India. There will be a bad impact on US and others, but even if we take that, but let's take that out of the picture. For us, the impact is, what is the impact on India? The big thing that is going to do, and this is something that I'm very sure about, the India government is responding very maturely. And what I suspect is going to happen is that this is a crisis which will lead to some very interesting reforms in Indian global business practices. No crisis is useless if it can lead to reforms, if it can be used productively. We used COVID productively. This is a wonderful opportunity for us to use this crisis to develop a lot of our capacity, which we can do and which we can now do with a redoubled energy, saying that we are a very fast emerging economy.
Okay.
So power.
Okay, thank you, Shubhamoy, for being with us. And let me also now take the opportunity to welcome senior journalist Saurabh Shukla on the show now. Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal has stated, Mr. Saurabh, in Parliament, that India is the fastest growing major economy in the world and is set to be the third largest economy in the world in a few years. He also spoke of how India has signed mutually beneficial trade deals with a number of countries. Would you agree that this self-confident yet open approach is the right way for India to proceed in the trade talks with the US?
Well, absolutely. You know, under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, It's a new India. It's a strident India, which is not only a major global economy, but it's a robust economy. So anybody who says India is a fragile economy does not know the basic facts, because factual position is that Indian economy today is being not only boosting confidence of the investors, but also major global companies. You see the investment coming from the US companies itself. So that's a manifestation of it. And I think the misinformation that is being spread about India's being a fragile economy, this is misplaced. And I hope better sense prevails. And, I'm confident that we will be able to tide over some of these hiccups, which I call in, the trade deals that we are having.
Okay, despite US pressure, the Indian government has been firm on not opening up its agricultural and dairy sectors. Would you agree that this is the correct response to the US demands?
Absolutely. Every country works is in national interest. There is a national interest that the United States takes its own concern. India has taken its own national interest. But as good friends, I can tell you, India and the US have a very strong bilateral relationship, which has been painstakingly built under Prime Minister Narendra Modi's leadership. And I'm confident that India will continue to defend its national interest. And wherever there is room for negotiation, we will be able to, overcome those differences with other countries, and we will come forward. You have to, as friends, you have to agree to disagree and have to defend your national interest.
Okay, also more broadly, would you say that the Indian government's aim, quite rightly, is to secure a beneficial agreement rather than a hurried deal that gives short-term benefit but may result in adverse consequences in the long term?
Absolutely. I can tell you that, I was there when Prime Minister visited, US in February. He had a talk with US President Donald Trump. And the whole idea was that they will do a whole deal by the fall of 2025. And the fact that the negotiators went for intensive negotiation, the reason was because India dug its heels, not compromising on our core national interests, which has been the mantra that has been guiding our negotiators. And I hope that we will be able to find a middle ground solution here.
Okay, unlike China, India is not a majorly export-dependent economy. How far does that work in India's favor in the current negotiations with the US, which of course are not yet over?
Well, it does. Absolutely, you're right. That, we have, our economy is multifaceted. We are not dependent on exports alone, but we also have a plan B in place. Like every country, I do know, and I don't want to spell it out in public domain yet, but I do know that India is strategically working on a plan B in place, which is there along with other countries, and India will make sure that its core national interests are kept at the center of any of these policies. And also, we will make sure that our consumers, our farmers, their interests will never be compromised.
Okay, ultimately over the next few weeks or months, do you see India-US talks coming to a satisfactory conclusion from both countries' point of view?
Absolutely. I think, I can tell you that there is a lot of understanding between the two countries, and contrary to, and as friends, sometimes some statements come out, it happens in families, it happens with friends, but I'm confident that under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, we will be able to send a strong message, yet some kind of a middle ground solution can be found. Otherwise, as friends, we also agree to disagree, as I said earlier.
Okay, so you are saying that the trust remains and we'll be able to finalize the trade deal soon.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Saurabh Shukla, for being on DD India News. All right, let's move on now. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh graced the Armed Forces Headquarters Civilian Services Day celebrations in New Delhi on Friday. The Armed Forces Headquarters Day is celebrated on 1st of August every year to recognize the role of the personnel who work shoulder to shoulder with the service personnel, primarily in the 3 integrated service headquarters. While addressing the event, Rajnath Singh said that the departments of the Ministry of Defence played their roles very beautifully in the confrontation with Pakistan.
ऑपरेशन सिंदूर के दौरान हमने देखा कि किस तरह से आपने भी हमारी सेना के हमारी सेना को बैकएंड सपोर्ट दिया था। रक्षा मंत्रालय के अलग अलग डिपार्टमेंट ने भी अपनी सारी भूमिकाओं को बहुत ही खूबसूरती के साथ बहुत अच्छी तरह से निभाया।
After assuming charge as the new Vice Chief of the Army Staff, Lieutenant General Pushpendra Singh paid a personal tribute to his fallen comrades from the Indian Peacekeeping Force operations at the National War Memorial in New Delhi on Friday. In a moving gesture, Lieutenant General Singh invited the Veer Naris and family members of 5 soldiers who sacrificed their lives during a counter-ambush operation in Sri Lanka to be part of the ceremony. Reaffirming the Army's motto, "No one shall be left behind," Lieutenant General Singh, a distinguished officer from the 4th Battalion of the Parachute Regiment Special Forces, was commissioned in December 1987. He joined his battalion during the IPKF mission in Sri Lanka, where despite being wounded, he led a successful counterattack, neutralizing 4 LTTE militants. Still with the national capital, a mega mock drill is being conducted in New Delhi on Friday in view of the increasing threat of earthquakes. Spread across 55 sites in 11 districts, the exercise is designed to train citizens in responding swiftly and safely during emergencies. The drill is also considered an important step towards establishing better coordination between the administration and the people. Global weather updates now. First from India, the Delhi NCR region is likely to experience light to moderate rainfall today, according to the India Meteorological Department. The IMD has forecast light rainfall for Delhi NCR till August the 5th. In its bulletin, it also warned of heavy to very heavy rainfall over the northeast region during the next 7 days. Meanwhile, Himachal Pradesh continues to struggle under the weight of the ongoing monsoon. Incessant rains have caused widespread damage to public infrastructure and triggered a rise in casualties across the hilly state. In Madhya Pradesh, several districts situated near rivers are facing flood-like situations, with hundreds of villages submerged. Gwalior-Chambal region is among the worst hit due to the rising water levels in the Chambal River, triggered by water releases from Rajasthan's Kota barrage and Nonar Dam. Heavy rains across Rajasthan have led to rivers like Chambal and Parvati breaching danger levels. In Dholpur, the Chambal River is flowing 12 meters above the danger mark, submerging several areas. The army has been roped in for rescue efforts. Rajasthan has experienced its wettest July in nearly 7 decades, with cumulative rainfall of 285 millimeters recorded across the state. The last time Rajasthan saw such heavy July rainfall was in 1956, when the state recorded 308 millimeters, the highest ever for that month. This year's rainfall comes close to breaking that 69-year-old record. Extreme rain and flooding across northern China have killed 60 people, more than half of them at a care home for the elderly in a suburb of Beijing, which has grappled with its deadliest flood disaster in years. A powerful mud flow impacted the town of Tirnayoz in Russia's Caucasus region, leading to evacuations and damage to infrastructure. Mud flow damaged the supports of the bridge on the federal highway that leads to the Elbrus resort. A state of emergency has been declared in the Elbrus district. The city administration advised residents to prepare water and gas supplies. Now, what began as a routine on Thursday turned into a race against the rising waters as millions across New York and New Jersey grappled with the aftermath of a storm that brought cities and lives to a standstill. Take a look at our next report.
Torrential rain swept across the Northeast America on July 31st, triggering National Weather Service issuing flash flood warnings from Washington, D.C. to New York City, with rainfall rates peaking at 2 to 3 inches per hour. In In New York City, subway tunnels were inundated, water was cascading into train cars, major roads were shut down. Owing to the alarming situation, NYC Mayor Kathy Mochel declared the state of emergency. Across the river in New Jersey, the situation was equally dire. In Montclair, vehicles were navigating knee-deep water. Highways faced partial closures. Acting Governor Tahisha Wei warned of landslides and rock slides, urging residents to stay indoors. The storm was fueled by a slow-moving cold front colliding with a moisture-rich air mass. Rainfall totals reached 5 to 7 inches, overwhelming drainage systems and exposing the fragility of urban infrastructure. With millions at risk, emergency shelters have been activated with rescue teams deployed and travel advisories issued. Officials urged residents to prepare go bags, monitor alert, and move to higher ground if needed. As the rain slows down, the damage is still being assessed. But for many, the storm was a stark reminder of how quickly normal can turn into emergency. Bureau Report, DD India.
On to business news now. In India, every first of the month, several changes are made and implemented with the rules. This time, several financial rules are set to come into force that will impact the pocket of the common man. The Reserve Bank of India has announced the extension of the trading hours of the call money, market repo and tri-party repo markets in 2 phases. The first phase effective from July 1st, 2025. Meanwhile, in the second phase, the trading hours for the market repo and TREPs will be extended with the new timing set from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Indian Standard Time, effective August 1st, 2025. The National Payments Corporation of India, NPCI, has introduced UPI transaction rules to reduce system load and ensure smooth transactions effective from today. The key updates include you can check your balance a maximum of 50 times per day. Bank account lists linked to your mobile number can be viewed only 25 times a day. Auto-pay transactions for EMI, SIPs or OTT subscriptions will be processed during non-peak hours. Failed transaction status can only be checked 3 times, and the receiver's name will always be visible during payments to avoid wrong transfers. Oil marketing companies have revised the prices of commercial LPG cylinders across the country. Effective August 1st, the price of a 19 kg non-domestic LPG cylinder has been reduced by 33.5 rupees in New Delhi. The new price stands at 1,631 rupees 50 paise. The rates have come down across major metros. So in Kolkata, a 19 kg cylinder now costs 1,734 rupees 50 paise, down 34.5 rupees. In Mumbai, it's 1,582 rupees 50 paise, a reduction of 34 rupees. And in Chennai, the revised price is 1,789 rupees, down by 34.5 rupees. This marks a consistent drop of around 33 to 35 rupees per cylinder across the country. However, there is no change in the domestic LPG cylinder prices. On to sports news now. India scored 204 runs for the loss of 6 wickets against England at Stumps on day 1 of the 5th and the final cricket test of the Anderson Tendulkar Trophy at the Oval. On a seam-friendly wicket, Shubman Gill lost another toss and India were put to bat in the overcast conditions. Indian openers Jaiswal departed early while KL Rahul failed to replicate his earlier heroics in the series. Brought in for Shardul Thakur in the playing 11, Karun Nair held the fort from one end as the 33-year-old walked to the crease at 83 for 3, with India having lost its skipper and batted with patience to bring up its first score above 50 since his triple hundred in Chennai in 2016. Washington Sundar finished on a score of 19 of 45 balls. So India will resume on day 2 on an overnight partnership of 51 of 88 balls. For England, G. Atkinson and Josh Tongue picked 2 wickets apiece, while Chris Woakes scalped 1. Due to rain interruptions, only 64 overs of play was possible on the day. England is leading the series 2-1. The Mumbai Cricket Association on Thursday announced that Indian cricket legend Sunil Gavaskar and veteran administrator Sharad Pawar will be honoured with life-size statues at the entrance of the upcoming MCA Sharad Pawar Cricket Museum at the Wankhede Stadium. The museum is a tribute to Mumbai's rich cricketing heritage and the legendary figures who have shaped its success. Gavaskar, one of the finest opening batters the game has seen, said that he was deeply touched and tremendously honoured by the MCA's decision. Sharad Pawar has served in top administrative roles in cricket, including as president of the MCA, Mumbai Cricket Association, BCCI, Board of Control of Cricket in India, and the ICC International Cricket Council. And that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. Connect with us on our different social media handles at DD India Live. And you can also download our DD India mobile app for quick news and updates from India and the world on the go. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja from all of us here in New Delhi. Thank you for watching. Namaskar.